The Iraqi Prime Minister has declared victory over Islamic State, saying the army has recaptured the El Nouri Mosque in Mosul, which is where ISIL declared a caliphate 3 years ago. Months of heavy fighting between the terrorists and the US-led coalition have devastated not only the city itself, but also the lives of hundreds of thousands of locals. And this morning, the story of Mosul's liberation is dominating global media coverage.
The Prime Minister is declaring an end to ISIS in Mosul.
Iraqi forces say they've taken an iconic mosque in the heart of Mosul that was destroyed by ISIS.
Iraqi forces battled the last ISIS fighters in Mosul.
But not so widely discussed this morning is the cost of that liberation for the people of Mosul. Murad Gazdiev spent over a month there during the battle. He explains why, for some residents, the word liberation does not describe what's happened in their city.
Liberation, that's one way of putting it. Obliteration is another. The goal was noble enough, freeing thousands from ISIS.
ISIS's so-called caliphate is crumbling. Leaders have abandoned fighters to die. Local fighters are being left to rot where they fall. Remaining inexperienced fighters are making rookie mistakes, blowing themselves and fellow fighters up accidentally in preparation for combat.
Mission accomplished. Mosul has been cleansed by fire. A city almost the size of Rome reduced to rubble. It is difficult to describe. You've got to be there, walk down its blasted streets, and you'll feel it. This is what the aftermath of a classic airstrike in Mosul looked like. View here really epitomizes what Mosul has been through. The neighboring street, all but destroyed. The street across, rubble. The street over there, it's the same story wherever you look. The press was tightly controlled. No freedom of reporting in Mosul. We saw what we were allowed to see, but this was enough.
طيران يضرب على مود شخص واحد يوقع بيت كامل.
غير يساعدون العالم شويه يا اخويا، حتى العالم تطلع من بيوتها، والله هسه العالم اكثرتها ترى
وتقطعوا ايدين وابني عمر، وهذا صار بينا وهذا الجرح، وجابوني هنا. الله يسلمك.
Streets and buildings can be restored. Lives cannot. Children, families, whole neighborhoods were sacrificed to airstrikes in the liberation. ISIS made sure that civilians died. They used them as human shields, hoping that the coalition would stop its airstrikes. They miscalculated. The bombs rained down until the end.
Civilian casualties are a fact of life in this sort of situation.
When a single US-led airstrike killed more than 100 civilians, I remember clearly how they tried but failed to contain that. At first, they blamed ISIS. Then they admitted to the bombing, but still blamed ISIS.
Perhaps civilians are being killed either by mistake or because the enemy is using a tactic that actually has them become part of the target. That is on them, not on us.
It's not our fault that we're killing civilians, they said. They'll remember this as a victory, the liberation of Mosul. But liberation may be the wrong word.